Welcome to a very special virtual adoption fair. My name is Robin, and I'll be your host for today. If our intro video didn't tip you off, this adoption fair is going to be a special one because we're trying something new. Rather than jumping between a whole bunch of birds of completely different species, we're going to be taking the time to highlight one specific group of parrots that are often overlooked by people, especially by people newer to parrots. Before we get to that, a little bit about us. Mickaboo Companion Bird Rescue is a 501c3 nonprofit located in Northern California around the Sacramento and Bay areas. We are an all-volunteer organization, and our birds are all fostered in private homes. We don't have a home office or a headquarters or anything like that. We rely on donations in order to be able to continue helping the birds. And due to the poor state that many of the birds arrive in, our veterinary bills average $50,000 a month. Today, we're going to be meeting some of the birds just like that, who arrived at Mickaboo in need of medical care and who have now gotten a chance to live out their lives happy and healthy. The birds we're going to be meeting today are Feronia, Rainbow, Paco, and Rikki Tikki Tavi, who you've already gotten a chance to meet in the intro video. Before we really start talking about Amazons, I wanted to talk a little bit about our adoption process, because this is an adoption fair. Before you can adopt from us, you'll need to go through our approval process to make sure that you're fully prepared to bring a bird home and to make sure that we fully understand the sort of bird that would be a good fit for you. This process includes a phone screen and a home visit, but it starts with our basic bird care class, which is free and held roughly every 2 weeks over Zoom. Our next class is going to be held on the 3rd, and for those of you who haven't yet joined a class, we really hope to see you there. Our process will cover your experience with birds, what you're looking for in a companion, and let us meet any birds you might already have or anyone who's going to be helping you to care for the birds. Our process can take some time, so we ask for you to be patient with us. While we understand that everyone is enthusiastic about adopting, for us, the most important thing is to make sure it's a good fit, not just for you, but for the bird as well. Adopting a bird is a commitment, and we want to make sure that it's one that everyone is going to be happy with in the end. Finding the best fit for you and the parrot is the most important factor for us. Now, with the logistics out of the way, we can get to talking about Amazons. If you have any questions, either about Mickaboo, Amazons in general, or one of the birds featured during today's adoption fair, please don't hesitate to ask any questions, either through the Q&A tab in Zoom or by commenting on the live stream in Facebook. So to start us off, I'm going to be chatting with some of the members of our Amazon team who are going to help us learn all about Amazons and hopefully answer some audience questions. So, do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Sophia, and I have 2 adopted Mickaboo Amazons and 2 foster Amazons at this time.
And I'm Shauna. I have adopted 2 Amazons, Bahama and Chewy, and I have fostered many Amazons over the years, and I love Amazons very much, so it's a joy to be here today.
And I am Megan, and you have already met Rikki Tikki Tavi. I am his foster, and we'll be learning more about him and seeing more of him later today. We're excited to be here.
Rikki Tikki Tavi is the little star of the show. So I am not an Amazon expert by far. I don't actually know all that much about Amazons. What I do know about Amazons is that they don't really have the best reputation. Can you talk a little bit about that, Megan?
Yeah, when I first got involved with Mickaboo in 2019, it was to adopt some wild flock parrots. And I really quickly got the idea from other volunteers that Amazons had a bit of a gnarly reputation. I heard that they were difficult birds to manage, that they had high temperaments and were known to be biting terrors is kind of what I heard. And I got to know Amazons a little more myself and quickly fell in love with them. They do take a bit of time to build trust with them, but once you've built that trust, they, I think, are some of the most amazing companion birds out there. And I want to give a little shout out to their comedic timing. They are amazing at adding laughter to your home. So if you need some extra laughter, an Amazon might be the bird for you.
Sounds like pretty much lines up with what I've heard, although I not have yet have had the pleasure of having an Amazon with comedic timing. So when we say Amazon parrots, that's not a species, it's a whole genus. About how many species of Amazons are there, Sophia?
There is actually 33 species of Amazons, and they are New World birds. So they go from Mexico down through Central America and South America and the Caribbean.
That is a lot more species than I was expecting. The Amazon that I'm thinking of is probably one about the size of Rikki Tikki Tavi, what I would consider a medium-sized bird. Are most Amazons about that size, Shauna?
Well, there is a range in size. We have a nice little graphic to show you, but the smallest on the Amazon scale would be the white front Amazon, which is 9 to 10 inches, weighs about 215 grams. And for comparison, that's about the size of a hamster. Then the largest on the size scale would be the mealy Amazon, which is 15 to 16 inches and weighs about 540 to 700 grams, which again, for comparison, would be about the size of 2 cans of soda, or I'm told a basketball. And the rest of the Amazons are somewhere in between on that size range.
That is a pretty big variance, a lot more than I was expecting. I was expecting more of the ones that are in the 400 gram range, right in the middle of that nice chart there. So I know Mickaboo deals with mostly parrots that were bred in captivity, but we do occasionally see some older birds that were either definitely wild caught or likely wild caught. Catching parrots in the wild, of course, is illegal, but it still happens. I do know that some species of parrots are really in danger because of this pet trade. Is that the case with Amazons, Megan?
Yes, unfortunately, that is the case. And I actually wanted to share, it is a misnomer. You can still, in some countries, legally catch parrots and export them from their wild homes. We passed legislation in the States in the 90s that prevented us from importing parrots, but that didn't stop people catching them in their wild homes and exporting them to other countries without legislation like we have. But birds like Rikki Tikki Tavi, yellow-naped Amazons, are actually, we are really concerned about them in the wild. There are less than 2,500 Rikkis living in the wild. And if we don't make some efforts to support conservation, we are going to lose this beautiful species within 50 to 100 years. And we're going to be sharing some links in the chat to some conservation work that's happening. Mickaboo is a part of the Parrot Conservation Alliance, and our goal is to help preserve the habitats of these birds and help them thrive in their wild homes. And we're excited to share some info with you guys. And while we humans are encroaching and taking their habitats, we do know that this conservation work does help. It is making a difference. We just need to invest more into the conservation.
It's kind of sad to hear, especially with how low that number is. There's a lot more in the pet trade than there are in the wild for a lot of these birds. Talking about birds in the wild and wild caught birds in the pet trade and everything, we do have a lot of birds in Mickaboo that are either middle-aged for their species or even elderly for their species. And that kind of rubs against what a lot of people come looking for, which is, I really want a baby parrot, because only with a baby parrot are you going to be able to bond. I'm assuming this isn't quite true. Can you talk a little bit about this myth, Shauna?
Yes, that definitely is a myth. We have many instances where the Amazons can bond very nicely to you, even as older birds. I remember one bird in particular, Bermuda, that I went to the animal shelter to pick up. This bird did not know me at all. And when I let the bird out of the cage to put the bird in the carrier, he was so full of feathers that needed to be preened. He just put his little head down and let me preen him right away. So, you know, of course, all birds have different personalities. So some might take longer to bond than others, and some might take more patience. But we have many instances with our fosters that are older that bond very nicely with their new adopters or their foster parents.
That is great to hear. And I feel like we're getting a live demo with Megan and Rikki Tikki Tavi over there, who is he's living it up, absolutely enjoying himself. One thing that I have heard is very positive is that Amazons tend to be a bit more expressive than some other parrots and have very pronounced body language, which can be really helpful. Can you talk a little bit about what people can expect to see, Sophia?
Sure. Amazons, when they pin their eyes and they flare their tail feathers, that means they're very excited. And so that's a time when you want to step back and let them be, because that's the most likely time that you're going to be bit.
Yeah, it's always nice when a parrot is more willing to say, hey, back off, and give you some advance warning. Also on the topic of older birds, we do not have a lot of Amazons that are older. They do have such long lifespans. And I do know that older parrots can be more prone to certain diseases and illnesses. Can you talk a little bit about older birds, what kind of things we're seeing commonly, and how you can deal with those, Shauna?
Yes, that was very surprising when I joined Mickaboo, finding out how many of the same illnesses that we get as humans can also befall birds. Things such as heart disease, arthritis. Some of the older birds are also prone to fatty liver disease. And a lot of these, due to the many advances in avian medicine, are very, very, very treatable. And the birds go on to have a very happy, fulfilling life once they're treated with medication for these illnesses, the same way humans also have to treat their illnesses. They do benefit well from being kept active, with exercise opportunities, out of cage time, foraging toys, things that are going to keep them active, because they can become precipitated if not allowed time to feed themselves and use that energy. So those are some of the things that they do face as they get older, but they are very treatable.
So actually, we had an audience question, which I think is a great question. We've mentioned older birds a couple times. What is a lifespan like for an Amazon, if anyone knows? Do you want to hop in, Megan?
Yeah, I can go ahead. So on average, the Amazons, if they have proper care and diet, can live up to 80. So a lot of the Mickaboo birds are in the 30 to 50 age range. So they potentially have a lot of life left ahead of them.
Yeah, so you would think, oh, it's a 50-year-old bird. That's a senior bird. It's 1 foot already in the grave, and actually it's got 30 years ahead of it. It's doing pretty well. We actually had a second audience question that I'm going to jump to Sophia for, because it was directly related to her a little bit earlier. You mentioned when their eyes start pinning. What is eye pinning for someone who maybe doesn't have birds?
So their pupils go really small. It's like, I don't know how to, I call it crazy eye. You know it when you see it. So I will tell my husband, oh, crazy eyes, step back. If he's walking by an Amazon cage when I see the crazy eye go.
I know in other species, it can be a bit more difficult to see if they have a darker eye color. If they've got a very dark brown, you can't really tell when their pupil does it. Whereas if they have a very light color, it can be very obvious when their pupils start getting big and getting small. So it can be very obvious and it can be less obvious. And it sounds like on Amazon, it tends to be a lot more obvious, which is always really nice. So I know it was mentioned a little bit earlier that with elderly birds, very common to see them medicated for things like arthritis, heart disease, etc. Is that something that is difficult? Is it something anyone can do? Megan, can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know you have some experience with that.
Yeah, and I would say a good number of our Mickaboo Amazons are on medications for their heart disease and arthritis are the most common issues, like Shauna mentioned. And we, as Mickaboo, we are volunteers that are here to help you and your birds succeed. None of us were born medicating birds. We all had to do it for the first time at some point in our lives, and you can too, and we will be here to support you. There's a few strategies that we usually recommend. You can sometimes give birds their medication on food, but I know some Amazons who are tricky and they will eat around the medicated bits, and if that's happening, it might be a better idea to towel them safely and then give them oral syringes of medication. And we'll actually have a video of that later on with one of our foster birds, Paco.
That I will look forward to that, because getting birds to eat their medication is a challenge for some birds. Some birds take it just fine. Some birds, not so much. We actually did have another audience question that I also think was pretty good, which is not related to any of the age stuff, but are they decent apartment birds? How loud are Amazons, especially compared to conures? Someone called out specifically. So if you can hop in, Megan, or if any of you have been around conures and can compare. I know Megan has.
Yeah, I'm happy to compare. And I'm going to first say it really depends on the bird. So I know that Sophia has shared Tobi is pretty quiet in her home. Double yellowheads are often known for being noisy, but Tobi is proving to be quiet. So it really depends on the bird. And you can hear Rikki here, but In general, conures are going to have that really more shrill sound. I don't think Amazons necessarily have that more shrill sound that you'd expect, particularly of sun and Gen-Day conures, but they can be quite loud. And I would really not advise most Amazons to be in a small living space. And I think Sophia is going to talk more about their vocalizations later.
So before we get on to the vocalization question, I did want to talk a little bit about, we talked a little bit about Amazons in the wild and how they are in the native environment and everything. Can you talk a little bit about the enrichment that we can give them in our homes to try and emulate that, Sophia?
Sure. So in the wild, our Amazons are going to spend all day with their flock. So they're not going to like being alone in our home. And they're going to spend most of the day foraging for food. So sitting in a cage all day with your food all in a dish is not a great situation for them. So we want them to have lots of toys, and we want them to do foraging for their food is also really good. I once had someone tell me that they didn't buy toys for their bird because as soon as they put it in there, the bird destroyed the toy. And I was like, that's the point. We want them to destroy their toys. We want them to stay active. They're really smart. And so if you were to put a Amazon in a back bedroom in a cage with no toys and nothing to do, that is the worst possible thing that you can do. So we try to put them out around their flock, and which is humans in some case, and instead of other birds, and give them lots of foraging opportunities and lots of toys to play with.
That sounds like a great advice for a lot of birds, but especially for birds that are going to be living a long time. I did want to talk a little bit about one weird oddity that I have heard, and this is kind of a deep cut for people who have had parrots before. Megan, is it true that they don't have a preen gland?
Yes, and this is a fact that I'm obsessed about, so excited to share with you guys. Most parrots have a preen gland, which is near their tail, and it secretes an oil that they will put on their beak to weatherproof their feathers. And Amazons and the purple macaws, so the spix, the leers, and the hyacinth macaws, along with pigeons and doves, do not have a preen gland. And so how they're weatherproofing their feathers is Amazons have a really fine layer of down underneath their primary feathers we're seeing. And they spend a whole lot of time preening that downy layer so that they can be nice and weatherproofed.
That is, as per bird person who doesn't know much about Amazons, that is fascinating and very weird, very unusual bird thing. So let's talk a little bit more about long-term health. I know Amazon diets are important. What is like the ideal Amazon diet? What should people be looking for? Can you talk a little bit about that, Shauna?
Yes, I'd love to. So a good quality pellet diet is really beneficial for them. We have many Amazons that come to us on a feed-based diet, and the pellets are just more nutritious for them. It's that nutrition that's compacted into that pellet. It's also a lot cleaner than the feed because you don't have all that feed tossed about that you normally do. So a good pelleted diet, a good quality pellet, and also fresh foods in their diet, such as vegetables and fruits, with more emphasis on the vegetables. That's always the fun part in learning which a bird likes and doesn't like, trying different vegetables and fruits with them to see, do they like carrots? Do they like broccoli? Do they like bell peppers? Do they like apples? And those kind of things are fun to find out. It gives them a variety in their diet, which is very, very nice. The other thing is keeping treats to a minimum so that they don't pack on pounds that can lead to health problems. So treats like almonds, pecans, a Nutriberry, those kind of things should be kept to a minimum in their diet to give them a nice, well-rounded variety in their diet that's going to be helpful for them and keep them from developing some of those health issues that we talked about earlier.
It is really important to have a good diet, especially on a bird that's going to live up to 80 years. one thing that I have heard, because Amazons, we talked a bit about their gnarly reputation and everything. One thing I have heard about Amazons that is definitely a positive for a lot of people is that they are fantastic talkers. Is that true, Sophia, or is that also a myth?
Oh, yes, they're definitely great talkers. They love making sounds that they hear around our house, laughing, coughing, sneezing, or some ones that I hear a lot. And they have the sweetest voices. So a lot of times, and they know when to use the terms. So when I uncover one of my birds in the morning, she says, "Good morning." And when I pick up my keys to go, I hear all the bye bye, bye bye. So it is really endearing and sweet. And they are second to African grays in as far as birds talking. They're second best to as good as grays talking. So they're really good talkers amongst our birds.
That is, yeah, definitely a positive for a lot of people. A lot of people love having the idea of a talking parrot. And I like Amazon voices. So we are going to start wrapping up this segment. We're going to talk about some individual Amazons and their own personal stories. But before we do, I did want to ask, what is one thing you really love about Amazons and really want the world to know? Do we want to start with Shauna?
Yes, I really love about them that they are so full of personality. I mean, Amazons are rarely boring birds. You know, some people think, you know, why do I want a bird? It just sits in the cage and does nothing. Amazons are nothing like that. They are fun-loving. They're active. They're always looking for something new and fun to do and explore. And they have these personalities that are just enjoyable. And when they talk in those cute little voices, it just warms your heart.
How about we hop over to Megan and Rikki Tikki Tavi, whose favorite part is definitely getting head scratches.
Yes, Rikki loves this, and I call him an ambassador bird. He loves to go out and meet people. My favorite thing about them, it sounds silly, but I absolutely love the way Amazons smell. I think Rikki smells like a nice, musky, meaty honey. And that carries across for most Amazons. I know Shauna and Sophia and I were chatting about that earlier. And we were teasing that cat and dog people think parrot people are strange, and parrot people think Amazon parrot people are strange. We're just all over here smelling our birds.
What about you, Sophia? Are you also sniffing your bird?
Of course, I love the smell of my Amazons. So I have a lot of experience with African grays and cockatoos, but Amazons are my absolute favorite. I have never met one that I didn't like. And isn't special in their own way. I forgot to introduce Tobi is the bird behind me. She's a new intake, and she's been at my house less than 48 hours. So she's pretty shy right now. And during our rehearsal, she was out where she wasn't behind the bars, but she's so shy, she knows this is live. So she's hiding behind the bars over here. But I am just so excited to work with her and to get to know her. I just know that I'm going to love her personality when she's able to not be as shy and get to know me. So
she just very at the last moment leaned out to peek at the camera, which is
good.
very excellent. They do have comedic timing. So thank you very much for being with us. We're going to move on to some individual Amazons who are still searching for their forever homes and talk a little bit about them. So thank you very much to all three of you. So our first guest is actually going to be a bird that is very special to me because I was involved in the rescue of Feronia, the mealy Amazon. The person who was surrendering was not sure what species Ferry was. They sent us some very grainy, poor quality photos, and they were incorrectly identified as a conure. And when we did some follow-up and got some more pictures, I was able to determine that they were not a slightly larger than a fist size conure, but were in fact a significantly larger Amazon parrot, about the size of a football. They're a mealy Amazon, which is the largest one. Ferry was in a cage for their entire life, effectively. They were bought off Craigslist 20 years ago, and them and one other bird were left in their cage and fed sunflower seeds and not allowed out. They didn't have any toys. It was just a truly miserable experience. And we have a pre-recorded video because Ferry wasn't able to join us live with Ferry and their foster. And you are going to see an absolutely amazing change. So I hope you guys enjoy. Are you there, Jennifer?
I am. Hello. Oh, so she'll be chatting along with us, I'm sure.
You can hear her in the background. For everyone else, the video is pre-recorded just because Ferry's a little shy, doesn't want to be on camera live. So Ferry has obviously changed quite a bit just from the video, because if you looked at these videos, there's no way you would say, that's a bird that hasn't been out of a cage in 20 years. So can you tell us a little bit about Ferry?
Absolutely. I'm so proud of how far she's come since she was rescued by Mickaboo, and she's been in this hospital being handled by all kinds of strangers, with people visiting her every day. She has become my little echo. Every time I do an interview or talk to somebody, she chitter chatters away, and she laughs when I laugh, and she has a big old time here. I know that in her prior life, she was offered sunflower seeds occasionally. Only sunflower seeds were her diet, and she was offered a large bowl of them occasionally at the bottom of her cage. She is now on a pellet diet. She will still work pretty hard to get a sunflower seed. She does love them, but I put Zupreme pellets in her cage every day for about 3 months, and then one day she decided they were good enough for her to eat. She came without a name in her previous home. They never gave her a name, and then Mickaboo took her in and gave her a goddess name, which I think went straight to her head. She's full of it. Her confidence has grown. She loves to be up on top of her cage. She doesn't especially like to leave her cage, but not in a protective or aggressive way. She's like me as a teenager, like, all my stuff is here. I'm really comfortable. Why would I go over there and sit somewhere else when I have my food and everything about my cage?
All the cool toys are in here. Why would I leave?
Exactly.
Mickaboo wasn't just Mickaboo. I gave her that name because I thought it was appropriate, because Feronia is the Greek goddess of forests. And I thought it was nice to have a nature name. I should also mention, Ferry was not alone. There was another Amazon who I believe is a double yellowhead Amazon, whose name was Apollo. And both of them came in and went straight to the vet. And I believe Apollo was with the vet for a little bit longer, and he's currently just waiting for a foster home who will be able to spring him and give him some attention. But does Ferry have any kind of health issues, anything people should watch for? I know you mentioned that she was with you at the hospital, and I figured people might need that information.
She's not here for medical reasons. We got involved with Mickaboo I took a bird class because I'm a vet tech. And I took a Mickaboo bird class because I'm a vet tech, and I just wanted background husbandry information, because I've worked emergency for about 10 years, and the majority of veterinary emergency clinics you'll find, I'm sure you guys know, do not see birds. So we opened our doors to seabirds, and most of the techs really had to work pretty hard to get up to speed about the husbandry. And earlier in this talk, somebody said that birds are incomparable to dogs and cats, and that is so true. Like, their organs don't even function in the same way. They're not in the same places. So we had quite a bit of learning to do, and Mickaboo volunteers were kind enough to bring their foster birds here so our nurses could get used to handling and kind of reading the body language, which is so different from the other species we work with.
And she looks like we just saw her having a little syringe. Is she on any medication then, or is she completely
got sidetracked there. She does have some respiratory issues just because of the husbandry of the environment she was in before. We had to, she had rhinoliths, like just boulders of material built up in her little nostrils that we had to clean out for her. And she does have some arthritis changes. She doesn't fly because of some abnormal feathers in her wing. You can see him kind of in this little bath video on her right wing. She has some curly feathers. They grow with like a double shaft and they're really bristly and strange. We don't know if that's from trauma, from just being excited and being kept in a confined space. It doesn't look like their cage was very big before. And I know she had some stress initially when she was moved to a new location, or if it's a circulatory issue. But she currently, she gets her little nose professionally picked from time to time. And she takes a meloxicam, which is an anti-inflammatory, like a bird safe aspirin, to keep her comfortable with her arthritic changes.
It sounds like overall she's in amazing health considering her situation.
Yes,
We
considering
do
her
not know.
situation.
We don't know how old she is exactly. We know she's at least 20 years old, probably closer to 22 minimum, but it's entirely possible she's 30 or even 40 years old. It's a mystery. Do we even know if she's a she?
We
or
don't
is this
know
a
if she's a
guess?
she. That's kind of presumed. And it's honestly just easier to refer to her that way.
I always like to check just so people can know what to expect. Some people have very strong opinions about whether or not they want a male or a female bird, and for the vast majority of species, you can't tell.
Yeah,
There's-
she may be one or the other. You can call her whatever your preference is. We're not sure.
She will not mind. She
No,
does
she does
not
not care.
mind. So can you tell us a little bit? I know you talked a little bit about being newer to birds, wanting to get more experience, etc. Has Ferry changed your opinion on Amazons?
So much, yes. Amazons that I know, I think she is unusual for an Amazon. I've looked into mealy Amazons a little bit, and they're kind of more receptive to strangers, and they're a little bit bigger and friendlier. The Amazons that I've known as a nurse are like loud and bossy and outgoing, which is definitely part of their appeal for people. She doesn't talk, she doesn't fly, she's kind of quiet and chatty. She hasn't shown any aggression the entire time we've had her. She is on the lower end of the mealy weight scale. I kind of got her accustomed to handling and stepping up while we were doing her diet conversion. I love that picture. She has a little cowlick in her feathers. When we were doing her diet conversion, I'd get her out and put her on a scale every day. And she ranges between like 560 and 580 grams. So she's bigger as Amazons go, but she's not enormous.
She's bigger than most Amazons, but smaller than most mealies.
Yeah, I've kind of lost my perception of Amazon size. Like we had a yellow nape in the other day, and I was like, why is this bird so small?
Where did the rest of it go?
Yellow nape size.
Does she have a favorite toy? Because I see like about half the time she's playing with that ball.
Yep, that's the one. She plays catch. And she's so proud of herself when she's able to grab it. All of her best happy noises come out when she's playing catch or when she's getting a bath. And I buy those little bamboo balls by like 5, and she probably goes through that amount of them every month. I think the marker of a good parrot toy is that they decimate it on a regular basis.
That they need regular replacing, or else you're going to have a really unhappy bird.
Yeah.
So as we start to wrap up, I just wanted to first say, if anyone has any questions, we are going to come back to Ferry near the end, and we will be happy to answer those questions for you. But before that, I basically just wanted to say, did you have any fun stories, anything we didn't cover, anything like that you wanted to talk about with Ferry?
That last little video bit was her morning routine, her favorite thing. I come in for the day in the afternoon, and I boop her little nose, and we do shaky paw, and that's how we start our day. She gets her little medication after that and a bath, and then we play. We have a big screen TV in here where we play nature shows for her, and I'm
Happy. She looks happy is the biggest thing for me. She is so clearly enjoying herself that it is just fantastic. It's been great to see her change.
so much. She's gone from no attention, kind of off by herself, to multiple people trying to butter her up and give her treats.
Yeah, it's great to see her. So thank you very much, both for taking care of Ferry and for coming in to chat with us a little bit about Amazons. And if anyone is interested in Ferry, let the Amazon team know, because she definitely deserves a good home. And I just love this video. It's so cute. All right. And we are back once again live. We did have a couple good questions that I wanted to touch on. If you do have any questions about Ferry, obviously they're not live, but I am more than happy to answer. Ferry is no bias at all. I just really like Ferry. We did have one question about what happened to Apollo, the other Amazon, which I incorrectly said was a yellowhead Amazon. Apollo is actually a yellow crown Amazon. A lot of Amazons have very similar species names, and for a layman like me, it can be hard to tell them apart at a glance. Apollo and Ferry were not bonded. They were in two different cages and had furniture between them. So while they were probably used to each other's company, they weren't really interested in each other interacting wise. We basically tested that when they first arrived, see if they had any kind of interest in one another, and Ferry was just way more interested in people. Apollo's health concerns were also a little bit more pronounced at the start, although he's now doing a lot better and is now looking for a foster home of his own. We did also have another question that was about Ferry's medication, about whether or not that was going to be a lifetime thing. Ferry is on meloxicam. It is definitely a long-term therapy. It's something that we work with avian vets with. It's not something you can really use as needed, just because it's a bit like taking an Advil to help with like a stroke risk. You want to keep it being fairly prolonged, but that's something that we work with an avian vet for a long time. We do annual medicals. Ferry would definitely need annual medicals reasonably for the rest of her life to make sure nothing changes. And she also probably wants regular grooming. She did have those, the rhino lists that got mentioned. We would expect to probably see a little bit less of that moving forward, but you always want to keep an eye on it. Someone else also asked how old Ferry was. Based on what the owner said, probably around 25 to 30. But we don't know for sure because they were bought secondhand off Craigslist. And unfortunately, a lot of birds in Mickaboo coming in do not get any kind of medical history or any kind of knowledge. It's pretty rare that we know the exact age of a bird. So with Ferry very firmly talked about, I did want to focus on our next bird. Our next bird is actually going to be Rainbow, and we are going to be bringing Sophia back to talk a little bit about Rainbow and just what's going on in their life. So, hi, Sophia, are you with us now?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Can you tell us a little bit about Rainbow here?
So Rainbow came from the shelter, and the shelter was going to euthanize him. And Mickaboo stepped in and gave Rainbow a new lease on life.
Yeah, we do see a lot of birds like that where the bird has any kind of health challenge, and that is generally too much for most shelters. Shelters aren't really equipped to take birds. Do we know anything about Rainbow's history, why their health became an issue, how old they are, or anything like that?
Yeah, let me go into that. So Rainbow was a police confiscation, so we don't know anything about where he came from, but I was guessing probably a drug lab. That's an instance where they would board up the residents and any animals would be taken to the shelter at that point. So that was likely where he came from. Therefore, we don't have any history on him, but he was in very bad shape in the shelter. He was holding one leg up all the time, and there was blood all over the perch. And obviously he wasn't feeling very good at that time.
And now we are seeing nice video of him climbing all over and dangling off a blanket, it looks like.
Yeah,
so
he doesn't like to be picked up, but he has learned that when I present the blanket, he grabs on with his beak, and that's how I move him around. He's comfortable with that.
I have heard of perch training, and this is the first time I've heard of dangle training. So can you talk a little bit about how the current health is? Because I can see we've got like a bin.
Yeah, so this is a hospital accommodation for birds. So the first video that we showed was when he first came in, and because perching is an issue for him, he lives in a hospital tub, plastic tub, which I call his crib, and it has a soft bottom on it, and then on top of that it has a washable incontinence pad. So the soft bottom is a mattress topper thing on the bottom of the plastic tub. Then there's a washable incontinence pad, and on top of there we put some baby receiving blankets that are 100% cotton, so they're real nice and soft on his feet. He wasn't able to perch at all initially, but I've worked with him and he just has thrived. And so as you can see there, he's able to climb up onto the edge of his tub now, and he is definitely living his best life. He's a very happy bird. And he definitely, one thing that about Mickaboo saving him is this is a bird that always had such a strong will to live despite his circumstances. So definitely, in my opinion, would not be a bird that should be euthanized.
It's honestly, I should have interrupted you almost even. We actually had an excellent example of eye pinning earlier, where you could see his pupils going bigger and smaller.
Right.
We talked about it a little bit earlier in the video. So does he need any medications right now? Is he also on meloxicam like Ferry, or is he not on anything at all?
Yes, he's on medicine twice a day. He gets meloxicam and gabapentin for pain management. And then he is also on isoxaprine and enalapril for, increasing from the poor diet. Amazons tend to get atherosclerosis, and so that kind of keeps it under control, and then helps the blood flow to his feet as well, because we want to make sure we're keeping them as healthy as possible. If you can see from the video there, his feet are not normal positioned, and he was probably born, or hatched, I should say, for a bird. He was hatched completely normal, but the vet believes that the band on his leg was so tight that his bone grew into it. And he held up his foot because it was in so much pain for years and years. And then that caused bumblefoot on the other foot. So that sores on the bottom of the feet. So that's what I've worked with him on.
So just while it's on the screen, who is that other bird, and does he get along with other birds? It kind of seems like he does.
Yes, he has a girlfriend that is Paco. I adopted her. She's a Mickaboo bird that I adopted, and she loved him from the get-go, and he wasn't so sure about her. He's very sweet. He's a lot sweeter than to her either. He's very, very sweet. And he gently moved her beak away when she tried to groom him initially, which was so sweet. He liked her, but he didn't really know if he could trust having another bird's beak on his head. So he did learn that was nice eventually, and he actually learned to groom back, which took him several years to learn. So that's really great. So now they can do reciprocal grooming.
That is great to see. So he might be a good fit for a home that has another bird. They just look very cute. And I love when birds are willing to preen each. Oh, and there we go. Perfect timing.
Yeah, that's more towards the beginning of when he was allowing her to groom him, and he just loved it. And it's so fun to watch. She will rip feathers out. It's just really something.
She's working on it. She's learning. She's learning. So I'm assuming you've had him for a couple years at least.
Yeah, quite some time. He came in on the day of the campfire, so almost 5 years.
So yeah, that quite a bit. And it looks like he has made a huge improvement. So definitely, maybe not a senior bird, but definitely special needs, and is really looking for a home. Can you say what his perfect, if you are going to describe the perfect adopter for him, what would be best for him?
Probably somebody that's home a lot and he just likes to hang out. So somebody who was home a lot and like even watching TV most of the day, he would love that kind of situation where he could just hang out with a human, sit on his bin or in his bin and just hang out with you. He really loves attention, but he really is afraid to be picked up. He doesn't like being picked up, which is why we've come up with him grabbing onto the towel to move him around.
I can imagine why you wouldn't like being picked up considering his foot issue. So that makes a lot of sense. Is he on a good diet? Is he a picky eater? I know a lot of parrots are.
He eats a pellet. He eats Harrison's coarse pepper pellet, and he gets a fruit and veggie plate in the afternoon, and he absolutely loves fruits and vegetables. He's a really good eater. It's heartwarming to see him because my other birds that have had a good diet most of their life were like, yeah, whatever. But he probably wasn't offered those kind of foods a lot. So he's always excited, happy to get them.
And that is great to hear. It's also great to see him playing with toys. One thing we talked about a little bit earlier, is he a talker? Does he know words?
He does whistles and he says his name Rainbow and he says his name Rainbowy. So when he's begging, if he sees you eating something he wants, you'll hear Rainbow, Rainbow, Rainbowy. So he definitely knows to get attention by saying his name.
I know a bird that would like that treat that you are holding. It's Rainbow. Rainbow would like that treat.
And the fact that he has perches now, he was cleaning his beak is what he was doing earlier. He cannot hold food with his feet like a normal bird eats. And so it's kind of like us not having our hands to eat. And his beak is often quite dirty because of that. So birds normally wipe their beak on a perch. So having the perches has really helped with that to help him keep his own beak clean.
He's a messy guy, a very messy guy, but it seems like he has made a huge improvement. And I know we've kind of had this running theme of birds whose lives were significantly improved since they came in. And it seems like we are continuing that theme here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people will come over to my house and see him and go, that's Rainbow? I can't believe it. I can't believe he's doing that. So it is really rewarding to have a bird like that and be able to give them a new lease on life, which is really, without Mickaboo, would never have happened for Rainbow. So.
And it is fantastic to see. Like I said before, I love when birds preen each other. It's just really cute. So it sounds like he is looking for someone who is willing to hang out and wants a little buddy to be friends with. Just someone to watch TV with, someone who's willing to chill. But before we wrap up and move on to our next bird, do you have any fun stories about Rainbow?
Yeah, something that just happened a few weeks ago, which is incredible. I was working around the house and I let Biko out so they could hang out together for a bit. And when I walked back in the house, I don't have any idea how he did it, but he was in her cage and he had climbed up to where the food dish was and was perched there. And I did a double take. I was like, what? Because, you know, they look similar, but different, of course. And so I thought, oh my gosh, how did you do that? I don't know how he did it, but I had to even get my husband so my husband could say, you know, so nobody would think I wasn't telling the truth. It was so amazing. So he really has made incredible progress.
He might be a mystery flyer or he might be a really fast scurrier, but only when you're not looking.
Yeah.
You never know. So we are going to kind of wrap up and leave Rainbow off there. Thank you very much for coming on with us.
Thank you.
I am actually going to be passing this off over to Megan, who is going to introduce us to our next bird and then talk a little bit about them. And there you go, Megan.
Thank you, Robin. So our next bird, we're going to actually see a pre-recorded interview between myself and their foster parent, Forrest. And this bird is Paco, the red lord Amazon. And the video, you will notice that it has a little bit of glitching. We had some issues by recording, but we hope that you still learn a lot about Paco and about how to medicate parrots through this video. Now we're going to come meet Forrest and Paco. Welcome, Forrest.
Hello.
Can you tell us about the little guy hiding on your shoulder?
So this is Paco. He is a 50-year-old red lord Amazon, and he's my little dude.
He looks super cozy with you. Can you tell us more of his story? How did he come to Mickaboo?
So to my knowledge, he came to Mickaboo in 2013, and his previous owner loved him, but didn't know the best bird care and bird diet. So Paco got to have sunflower seeds as the staple of his diet, which is his favorite treat. But it's a little like letting your kid eat nothing but sugar and treats. That's probably not the best thing for them, but they might like it. So in addition to being old, he also has some arthritis and heart issues that we have to work through.
Got it. And that's not uncommon that we see birds coming into Mickaboo who aren't on the best diets. And diet is one of the biggest impactors of their long-term health. Can you speak a little bit more about his disabilities and how you manage those?
So he gets some extra medications. He gets, oh, here we go. 4 of the little oral syringes in the morning and then 5 at night. And also he has an adaptive cage. So he has all of his objects are low to the ground. That way he can also climb back up if he falls off or is on the ground. He's mostly blind. He's at least half blind, if not 70 to 80% blind. So we keep toys in kind of the same arrangement so that he doesn't get too spooked. He kind of knows the layout of his cage.
That makes sense. So usually we suggest you change up your toys and perches in your bird's cage, but for Paco, we like to keep it pretty stable because of his vision, and his disability means we need his stuff lower to the ground. And can you tell us a little bit more about medicating Paco? I understand he's the first bird you learned to love, and how did you learn that process?
So originally I learned it from the person who was taking care of him previously, which is another Mickaboo volunteer. And to him, it was just such an easy thing where he just threw a little hand towel over him and Paco went with it. There was a learning curve to kind of learn little tricks where I'll come at the side that he's blind on. I'll maybe kind of start scratching him so he'll put his head down, and then I'll try and wrap him up. But it's just, once you do it, you start getting used to it. And now it's to the point that I don't even have to stand up. I'll just be sitting in my chair. I'll put him on my lap, towel him right there, and then throw him back on my shoulder.
And we're going to go ahead and include a video here of Forrest medicating Paco so you all can see what that looks like.
One, 2, 3, 4.
And thank you for that example. You can tell from that video that Paco really trusts you and you guys do that regularly. And can you speak a little bit more of how you built your confidence in medicating Paco? I know that it's something that was new to you when you got him.
Just, it's something that you have to do every day, twice a day. So it's kind of like tying your shoes. You're going to get good at it. Like I said, there was a learning curve, but just, you kind of figure it out. So like you figure out what works for you. So I originally tried to do things on about a table, just so I'd kind of be able to be over him. That made it a little easier. I don't like using a heavy towel. I like using nice light hand towels. That way I'm not crushing him with the weight of the towel. They are fragile creatures, and we want to make sure we're gentle with them.
Thank you. And what would you want to say to someone that's feeling nervous about medicating a bird to help them have more confidence?
It definitely can be done. People learn new skills all the time, and it's very rewarding. Medicating him is the two high points of my day in the morning and evening.
That's really sweet to hear. And we hope that if you're watching here, you understand that we are a community that will support you in caring for these creatures. And Paco seems like he loves to get scritches and spend time with you. Can you tell me what a day's like with Paco?
If I'm with Paco, Paco is on my shoulder. There are people who say they have lap cats. This is a shoulder bird, where this is where he wants to be all day. We play Minecraft together. Yeah, and also I give him, he likes getting scritched. And sometimes we'll do what we call beak wrestling, which is where he doesn't seem into it right now, but oh, oh, here we go. So I'll kind of, he'll try and open my fingers up, and I won't push down, but I just won't let him open up. So it's kind of like exercising his jaw, gives a little resistance. And also he likes it when I scratch his beak. Yeah.
And is Paco a one-person bird, or does he like other people too?
He does like other people, but he is definitely my bird. You know, when my mom can handle him and have fun with him, but when I come in a room, he wants on me. You know, it's goodbye, lady.
Got it. And that's not uncommon for birds, that they will pick their favorite person and then attach to them. And how is Paco's noise level in your home?
Paco is not a noisy bird at all. Like right now, next to me is his noisiest. And this is just kind of a funny thing with parrots, where sometimes when their favorite person's talking, they'll start squawking because, oh, he's talking, I should talk too. But he makes little clicks and whistles, so he is not a problem with noise at all.
Yeah, because they're flock animals, they like to chime in when we're having our conversations, and it's cute to see Paco doing that. And he's on your hand now, and I understand that's his good eye we're seeing. And
Oh yeah, so here is his good eye. And now we're going to twist Paco around if he lets me. You know, he wants to go this way. And here is the evil eye. Paco. That's about the best we're going to get it.
Thank you for showing off and cooperating so well, Paco. You clearly have a great relationship with him. And Paco is one of the few birds in Mickaboo's care that we actually consider to be a forever foster, meaning that Paco is of a certain age and has health conditions that are just going to progress, and we feel it's better for him to stay in a permanent foster care in a home that understands his needs. So if you're watching this today and you want to be an angel donor for Paco, please go ahead and reach out to our angels@mickaboo.org email to learn how to do that. And I know you said Paco came in on a diet of sunflower seeds. What's he eating now?
Right now, he's actually eating my thumb and thumbnail. And it's a funny thing, he'll sometimes just go through my nails and kind of give me a little manicure, which is kind of a fun little side benefit. But what is he eating? So once a week for all my birds, I will make a chop of some parsley, some cilantro, shredded carrots, celery, anise, and that's the base. And then I'll throw in some fresh fruit and maybe some frozen corn. He loves frozen corn. And as a treat, I love giving him a popcorn because it's kind of a low calorie, but has a nice texture that they love.
Got it. And that's popcorn without any oil or salt on it, right?
Popcorn and air fry. That's the secret.
Popcorn, yeah. Air popcorn with no additions is okay for birds as an occasional treat. And he's also on pellets, is that right?
He is on Tops pellets, yes.
Good. So that's a much better diet for him and will help his long-term health needs. And what does Paco like to play with? What are some of his favorite toys?
He likes softwood toys. He likes tearing up cardboard. And just kind of like he does love foraging, but he kind of likes going through soft things. He doesn't want to break through hard cardboard. He doesn't want to chew through hardwoods. You know, he's an old guy. He's got an old beak. So
yeah, that makes sense. And I know we've talked about Paco as the first bird that you fell in love with. We often hear people say that you should buy a baby bird if you want to bond with them, but clearly we can see by this video here that's not the case. Can you speak a little bit more to bonding with an older bird?
absolutely not. Me and Paco, well, Paco chose me, so that's, of course, it depends on the bird. It's never no situation is ever the complete story. But I have had no problems with Paco, and I've worked with a lot of birds who are in their 20s and 30s, and I've had a lot of good relationships with them. But I do not see any sense in the idea that you can't bond with an older bird. Clearly, he likes me and I like him. So.
Yeah, that's great to see, and that's a myth we're really trying to dispel. Since Amazons do have longer lifespans, we have a lot of older Amazons in Mickaboo's care, and we want people to see that you can form these kinds of companion relationships with them still. As we're wrapping up, could you tell us any fun stories about Paco?
I mentioned that he gives me manicures sometimes. I was driving home from a vet visit once, and the Austin Powers theme song came on, and he just lit up and will whistle along with the horns. If we put it on now, I guarantee you he won't make a peep. It's only on Paco's schedule that he will perform. But like, a funny thing is he has never bitten me out of anger or frustration. But sometimes, if he's off balance, he will just grab onto my ear, and he's not biting it. He's just like, oh, I don't want to fall off. And it's kind of funny when he's just hanging there, and then I'll put my finger down and kind of, yeah.
Yeah, like a Mission Impossible burb hanging on.
Very much.
That's super cute. Well, Forrest, thank you so much for giving Paco such a loving home and helping us learn about a sweet older bird like him. And if you have any questions about Paco, please go ahead and send them to us in our Zoom chat, and we will do our best to answer those. Thank you, Forrest, and thank you, Paco.
Hey, bye, Paco. Bye.
Thank you. We hope that you all enjoyed getting to learn about Paco and see him be medicated. And we had a question about how old Paco is. We're estimating he's about 50, and he's been with Mickaboo since 2013. So he's been in our care for 10 years now. And I wanted to invite Robin back on to talk about maybe the bird of the hour, Rikki Tikki Tavi.
Rikki Tikki Tavi, the secret star of this Amazon adoption fair. He was in the intro. We saw him a little bit earlier, and now we're going to get some pre-recorded, very cute video of Rikki Tikki Tavi just going on there. So before anything else, we actually had someone ask during our initial segment about how old Rikki Tikki Tavi is.
Yeah, Rikki Tikki Tavi is 43 years old. I had a friend recently turn 43, and I assigned Rikki her birthday. So Rikki, his birthday is April 1st, believe it or not.
So lucky and happy birthday to him. He's so young, looks so young for his age. So how did Rikki Tikki Tavi came to, did the name come with Rikki Tikki Tavi?
Yes, he came into Mickaboo with his name, Rikki Tikki Tavi. He does say hi, Rick, so he does know that's his name. And he came into us about a year ago, and I've been fostering him since day one with Mickaboo. And his surrender situation, he lived with one owner his entire life, which is actually, we don't see that so often with birds of his age. They usually move homes more regularly. And that owner was a truck driver, and he took Rikki in the cab of his truck with him across the country. Rikki sat on that steering wheel, and when he came to Mickaboo, he both talked and ate like a truck driver.
I'm going to take a guess and say that ate like a truck driver is maybe not a bird appropriate diet.
Yes, absolutely. When Rikki came to Mickaboo, he essentially had high cholesterol after we did his blood work. And he no longer does, because we've gotten him onto a proper bird diet. When he came in, his favorite foods were mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, pizza crust, and toast. And now he is on a much better parrot diet. So he is eating Rainbow Supreme pellets. Those are the only kind of pellet he will eat, but he enjoys them, and he will make a soup out of his pellets. And then he loves chop. He's really good with chop and will do all sorts of good vegetables and fruits.
I love, is he a talker? I feel like that's the question of the hour, because we've had so many good talkers and so many not so good talkers. And I feel like we heard a little bit of chatter from him earlier, but does he talk?
Oh yes, Rikki is an excellent talker, and we're actually going to end this event with a video reel of quite a few Mickaboo Amazons talking, so you'll see him there. But he is a great talker. He honestly talks almost all day. If I am talking, he's going to be talking. And his favorite things to say are okay, okay. He says it just like that. And yeah, he'll say stepper up. He says hello and bye, and he knows the right context to use those. He's just a really cool bird, and he loves to chat and whistle all day.
I just love, he's just cute. I am smitten with all of these Amazons, really. We actually have two really good audience questions. The first one being, you mentioned that he, eating chop. What is chop for someone who maybe doesn't already have birds or hasn't gotten into chop yet?
Yeah, so chop is something that we should be offering all of our birds in our home. And it is a diet that we make of fresh foods. So we're literally just chopping up some vegetables and leafy greens and a small amount of fruit and offering it to them. I often in my chop will have some cilantro. My birds all seem to love that. Kale. We'll do some peppers, and parrots actually love the core of the pepper. So don't discard that. Offer that to your bird. Beets are popular, and then he loves corn, edamame, and then he loves any fruit. Apple and banana and grapes are definitely his favorites, though.
It's basically a way of getting them a different texture and not just giving them a whole apple and going, go wild.
Right, and the pellets should be the main part of their diet, but I don't know about you, but I have tried a pellet and they do not taste that exciting, so it's good to give them some variety in their diet too.
We actually had someone ask, are any of today's birds, so in this case Rikki, but open to anyone else, okay with dogs in the house?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And we obviously see, if you love birds, you probably love all animals. And so we do encounter folks that have multiple species of animals in a home. It's something that you can do. You just want to make sure that you do it safely. Parrots are prey animals and dogs are predators. So you want to go about that process safely and ensure that they're not interacting ever without supervision, or not interacting at all, but that they're not together without supervision in your home.
Makes sense. Even more audience questions, because Rikki is quite popular. People are smitten with him, and how can you not be? Is Rikki good with kids, and how is he around new people?
So Rikki is fantastic around new people. I call him our ambassador. Rikki loves to go to outreach events, and he honestly gets disappointed when we have to go home. His highlight is getting to talk to new people all day. I wouldn't suggest kids be with him on their own. As an Amazon, he does have that tendency to flare his tail and pin his eyes and get overexcited. But he certainly is a very entertaining bird, and I think kids would be entertained by him as well, as long as they know how to respect him.
That sounds like as good as, I feel like a lot of birds are kind of the same way. As long as the kid knows to respect them and it learns appropriate boundaries, they'll probably be fine. Even more audience questions. Can Rikki fly?
That's a good question. I don't think Rikki ever learned to fly, is honestly my guess. Rikki has never shown any interest in flying since I've had him. I will sometimes, when I have him perched, bring him down quickly, making him flap his wings, get some wing exercise in. But I wouldn't be surprised if he actually never learned to fly. In the wild, birds are taught to fledge by their parents, and it's possible nobody ever gave him that opportunity. He prefers to be toted around, and sometimes we'll get down and walk across the room to find you.
I've seen that in quite a few birds that have come into Mickaboo, where they've always had their wings clipped so young that they just don't have any instinct to flight. It's not a primary instinct for them. Save when they're startled, I've seen a couple times. I don't know if Rikki is a startle flyer, if he ever sees a scary hawk or anything in the distance.
No, I've never seen him make any attempt to fly other than when we do our wing exercises.
Oh, you're doing wing exercises to try and encourage him to fly, I'm guessing?
Just to get him some exercise in his day. Parrots in the wild would be flying upwards of 10 miles, foraging for their food. And in my home, he lives on some perches. So we want to give him some exercise in his day.
So rather than flying 10 miles, he is walking 2 feet to the bowl to get some delicious food.
Exactly.
He is living a life of luxury. Does he have favorite toys? Anything he really likes?
Yeah, so Rikki actually, his favorite thing is to chew up his rope perch. He has a giant rope boing in his cage and he loves to shred that. He's not swallowing the material, which is important to make sure that that doesn't get in their crop. But he's a big shredder. He loves to go after anything that's shreddy. He loves hardwood. He has a good amount of hardwood in his cage. But honestly, his biggest entertainment is he wants to spend time with me and talk to people.
You mentioned that his favorite toy is chewing on the boing. What's a boing for people who aren't bird people?
Yeah, so in our cages for birds, we want to give them a variety of different surfaces to stand on so that their feet don't get cramped in one position. And one that's super common is we'll have rope perches, which is just a perch made out of cotton rope. And a boing is a twisted rope perch. It looks kind of like a coil that is hanging in his cage. And he uses that as his fortress. He will hide in the middle of it and camp out there.
We had a really good audience question. So this is something that gets covered in our basic bird care class or whatever, but when you adopt Rikki, does he come with a cage or toy or anything? And I can answer this one. In general, it's going to be a little bit different for every bird. Generally, birds do not necessarily come with their cage. They can sometimes. It really depends on the situation. That said, most birds do come with a bit of a dowry, both birds coming into Mickaboo and birds going out of Mickaboo. If a bird has a favorite toy, we are not going to steal it away from them. It will probably go with them to their new home. So that is not something that a new adopter would necessarily need to worry about. But at the same time, birds go through toys and you're probably going to need to get new ones very quickly anyway. I'm guessing Rikki probably needs a lot of toy replacements.
Oh, yes, he does. And I will get home from work and there'll be lots of shards of wood at the bottom of his cage.
Yeah. Oh, that was actually something that I have seen, and I should have brought it up earlier. Are Amazons dusty birds?
Yeah, so this video is great to see that. You see him backlit with the sun. Amazons can be quite dusty. I don't think they're as dusty as maybe African greys and cockatiels are known to be, but they do have quite a bit of dust on them. And it honestly, when it comes off, it kind of looks like your bird's smoking. It looks like the bird's on fire when the dust clouds come off.
When you have a teeny little phoenix going on, you've got a little. Rikki Tikki Tavi seems quite popular, and we've got quite a few questions about him that we have now gone and answered. If anyone does have any questions about Rikki Tikki Tavi, about any of the other birds, we are going to stick around a little bit longer as we approach the end of our presentation and answer them. Having said that, do you have any fun stories before we wrap up with Rikki Tikki Tavi himself?
Yeah, Rikki is just a really silly bird. He likes to do whatever I am doing. He wants to be on our phone calls. He wants to be at outreach events, as I said, and I actually drive a convertible, and I wouldn't normally recommend having my top down with birds, but when Rikki is in a secure carrier, he loves nothing more than to go in a car ride with me. That was his life, was living in that truck, and he still adores that to his day.
So he is a big... Yeah, there are definitely birds that do not want to go in the car ever, and there are definitely birds that love the novelty of looking out the window while securely in their carrier. So yeah. I can imagine why he might enjoy that so much. So thank you very much, Megan. Having said that, I am going to be the one stepping away because I believe you wanted to talk a little bit about our need for Amazon foster homes. So back to you and enjoy.
Thank you, Robin. Yeah, so I am our newer Amazon coordinator, and we have had a whole lot of Amazons that are being surrendered to Mickaboo, and it's been taking me a bit of time to place them. We had at one point 10 birds that were coming in. I think we're now down to 4 or 5, but we are looking for foster homes for these birds. And I wanted to share a little bit about who they are to give you an idea of who needs a home. So first we have Pollo on this screen here. And Pollo, you have heard about him today. He came in with Feronia, the mealy Amazon. He is a yellow crown Amazon that we are estimating to be about the same age as Ferry, 25 to 30. And he has been in boarding at our vet, and it sounds like his health conditions are a lot better. And we're looking to get him out of the vet and into a foster home. We don't know a ton about his personality since he's been in the vet, but we've seen how big of a rebound Ferry made. So we're hopeful Pollo can have a similar outcome. And we have another bird here. I think the next is going to be Pollo. Next slide. Thank you. Yes, it's Pollo. So Pollo is a Mexican red-headed Amazon, and he is coming into Mickaboo as a multi-bird surrender. So this house actually has an outdoor aviary they've constructed, and they've been keeping Pollo, this Mexican red-crowned conure, Amazon, along with a sun conure and a cockatiel in this aviary. And we are trying to rehome all three of these birds. They can go to separate homes. We're not going to keep them together. Amazons and cockatiels are from entirely different continents. They would never have met in the wild. So we're looking to rehome those three birds separately. So here's Pollo. And we have another one. Bobby. So this is actually not really what Bobby looks like, but it's a close estimate. Bobby is a double yellow-headed Amazon. We don't have his photo yet, but he's being surrendered to Mickaboo. His owner had a change in their living situations, and they're no longer able to care for Bobby. And he is quite the chatter and talker as double yellowheads can be. And he says some super cute things. He says, "I love you," and "give me a kiss," and "give me a big kiss." So that is adorable, and we're trying to get a good home for Bobby. And then last on this home list that needs a foster home is Pancho. Pancho is a yellow-crowned Amazon. He's also being surrendered to Mickaboo with two other birds, but we can put them in separate homes. They don't need to go together. And we're guessing Pancho is about 10 years old. And then I wanted to speak briefly on two birds who came into Mickaboo just this past week. We are actively taking in birds almost every day. We get calls about birds who need surrendered. So we just last week took in a yellow-naped Amazon like Rikki. This is Oscar. And Oscar is at least 50 or 55 years old. And he has a few different disabilities. He has arthritis, so he needs that medication that Ferry gets. And he also has a ruptured air sac. And unlike us, parrots don't have lungs like we do. They have air sacs throughout their body. And he has one over his chest that is ruptured. And that means that it actually is hyperinflating. And we sometimes will actually need to lance him with a needle and deflate the bird. Isn't that such a funny thing to hear, that you have to deflate your bird? So we are looking for a really experienced home that is willing to do some more medical care to take care of Oscar. And then last, you got to see a little bit earlier today with Sophia, we have Tobi, and Tobi is a beautiful double yellow-headed Amazon. Tobi is about 18. We actually know her hatch date. I think she was born on the 4th of July. And Tobi, we're just getting to know her. She came in with actually a very Edwardian collar on to prevent her from chewing on her feet and her feathers. She just got through one of our vets, and we're waiting to get some blood results back to see what's going on with Tobi. But this is just a handful of birds we're trying to take in, or did just recently take in. And thank you for looking at those. And if you are interested in helping, please go ahead and sign up for our class. That is the first step to adopt or foster with Mickaboo.
Now I'm going to hop back in here. We did actually have a couple good questions, so I'll hold on to you for a moment, Megan. We had a couple general questions, some of which are Amazon specific, some of which are not. We are still answering questions, and we will keep doing so even as we go into the outro video. One question was, how often should you be checking a parrot's health? And the correct answer is all the time. Can you talk a little bit about the sort of symptoms someone might see? What can you look for, Megan?
Yeah, so when we're monitoring our birds' health, the two things that we can actively monitor is we want to check their droppings. So you'll want to make sure that their droppings look healthy every day. There's no weird coloration, no smell. The consistency is regular. We actually have a paper on our website. One of our volunteers might be able to throw it in the chat called Poopology, learning how to read your bird droppings. And then we also want to be regularly weighing them. You should be weighing your bird using like a kitchen scale about once a week. And birds are prey animals, so they will hide their illnesses. So usually a change in their weight is one of the first signs of illness. And some other common symptoms of illness are as if they're on the bottom of their cage, if they're acting lethargic, if their tail's bobbing, if you see any kind of discharge in their nares, if they're not eating, any of those would be causes for concerns. And as I mentioned, since they're prey animals, when you notice they're ill, there's probably something a lot more significant going on. So you'll want to get them immediately into an avian vet.
And just immediately following up with that, what is a nare?
Yeah, a nare is their little nostrils where Ferry gets hers professionally picked. So that's their nose opening. And then we recommend, since parrots do have such long lifespans and complex health needs, that you get your bird into an avian vet for an annual checkup. And the first time you go, they'll do blood work. It'll be a little more expensive, but you'll have a base panel for your bird. And then you can compare that when you go back each year to really monitor their health.
Fantastic. We did also have another question, which I am happy to answer. And that is, how long does the application process take? And the correct answer is, it really varies. It depends on where you're located. It depends on your situation. Once you've taken the class and your application, I believe it's currently taking about 1 to 2 to 3 maybe weeks for you to get a phone screener, generally on the shorter side. Home visits, it really varies. We have had home visits that get picked up in a day, and we've had home visits where it takes a month before anyone in your area is available. We generally quote about 8 to 10 weeks from absolute start to absolute finish, but most of that time is a matter of waiting for someone to be available in your area. I don't think we have any specific other questions otherwise, but once again, if you still have questions, you can put them in the Q&A. Otherwise, I'm going to thank Megan for your time, and I'm going to just start us with our wrap up. That is all the birds we are going to be seeing today. I really hope you guys enjoyed Amazon August. I hope you guys learned something about Amazons. They're very unique and very distinct birds, and maybe a little bit their reputation isn't great, and I don't think that's deserved. We are going to be running a survey to get feedback on today's adoption fair, both just in general and on the bird specific format. You can find it shared in the chat. And I would love if we could get some of your feedback. If you did fall in love with one of these birds, please reach out and contact us. If you haven't started the adoption process, like I said, we've got a class coming up, and that is absolutely going to be your first step. Otherwise, if none of these birds seem like the right birds, maybe you've decided an Amazon isn't for you, it just doesn't fit your lifestyle. We have plenty of others on our website at meackaboo.org. There are so many birds who need their forever homes, and one is waiting for you that's going to be perfect. So, a few more things before we sign off. Thank you for attending. I also want to thank everyone who has participated, all our volunteers, all our fosters, and all our birds. We are going to have another adoption fair next month, September 17th. So I hope to see you there. I would also like to remind everyone that we are a donation-funded nonprofit. We have no paid volunteers. Everyone is just volunteering our time out of our love for the birds. And all of the money is going towards the vet bills for many of the birds that you saw here today. You can find us over at meackaboo.org/donate or up on the link tree linked up there. Third, if you have any other comments or ideas, the post-fair survey is a great place for them, or you can send us an email. We're always trying to improve these, make them a bit more interactive, and help you see the stuff that you want to see. And again, a huge thank you to all our fosters, to all the birds, to everyone who's participated, and to all our behind-the-scenes folk who've been really helping us out here, putting links in the chat, answering the Q&A, and generally keeping things running. We're going to keep monitoring the Q&A moving forward, so if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in there. Otherwise, we're going to have a very special credits. It is going to be a nice little video of some Amazon sounds you can listen to, the talking, the chatter, the laughter, and all the other noises that they make. And I hope you enjoy.
A fire truck. Oh, that was a short one. Where's the long fire truck? Where's the fire truck? Oh, you're funny. Yeah. Are you ready for weighing and for your medicine? Hello. Where are you going? What? Come here. Time to take your medicine and time to weigh you. Gus, where's Alexa?
Hello? 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 Okay.
Hello.
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 Okay. 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 Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello, Rikki.
Hello.
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 Okay.
Hello.